So we have a new Goosebumps show that just came out on Disney Plus. So first thoughts are, when I was little, I still remember how terrified I was after watching the Goosebumps episodes. This new show does not have the same power to terrify a generation and give them nightmares into adulthood. I mean, I doubt I'd even get a nightmare from this show even when I was a kid, let alone still be thinking of it as an adult. And I'm still terrified of dummies because of what that show did to me. Like that episode of Buffy with the dummy and that movie Dead Silence absolutely terrifies me because of Slappy, because of the impact that Goosebumps had on me. And it's just really sad that the shows that are coming out these days aren't going to give the younger generation the same kinds of impact that we grew up with. Basically, Disney Plus dropped the first 5 episodes and we're going to get the other 5 episodes. So it's going to be 10 episodes all up. It's going to go beyond Halloween into November. So it's going to release every Friday, 1 episode each Friday. So yeah, look, I really would have preferred if they had dropped it all at once, but at least they're not doing it week by week, because if they had done that from the beginning, I think a lot of people would have sort of lost interest, but they did do a smart thing, I will admit, and ended on a pretty good cliffhanger, so there's more chance of people coming back. So basically we have each episode is its own self-contained thing, and then we have the overarching plot, sort of like, you know, the X-Files, Supernatural, how they had those Monster of the Week episodes, Buffy as well. They all had those self-contained episodes, but they had a ongoing plot, and I like that format, but I feel like for this particular show, it would have worked better if they had just had it as an anthology and made each episode its own thing, because look, if you've read the original books, you know that they rarely have a happy ending. Usually the kid ends up missing or some other tragic thing happens to them, and we can't really go that dark while we have the same cast because it will just get too small. So yeah, we have to sort of end on this optimistic note that never happens in the books, where they overcome the mask and the camera and things like that. And yeah, it just doesn't feel like Goosebumps. You know, I really feel like the original TV show from the 90s was like a gateway horror. It got you into horror movies as an adult. And the movies, the Jack Black movies, I do like Jack Black, but the movies just felt really generic to me. And then we had that R.L. Stine Fear Street trilogy movies, which same thing, felt really generic. And the Fear Street ones were like Goosebumps for older kids. They were a bit darker. I really liked those books growing up. And you know, we have a show that nobody really talks about by R.L. Stine called The Haunting Hour. So basically that's what I wanted this show to be. It's a bit darker, it's a more modern take on, it's not the Goosebumps IP, but it feels like it. So that's on YouTube for free, and it's also on Prime. So I feel like that's a really good show to watch for people that are in that Goosebumps mood but are a bit disappointed by the show. Go watch that. So we have The Cuckoo Clock of Doom, Say Cheese and Die, Go Eat Worms, and The Haunted Mask, and we're going to have Slappy as a major part of the other episodes, and we're going to have Welcome to Horrorland, or whatever it's called, the Horrorland one. And I really wish they had made the Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. That was my favourite book. I felt like that was terrifying. The overarching storyline, I do find it interesting. It's cliche, yes, but I've never had a problem with a cliche if it's interesting. And while I think this could have been an anthology and they could have just made this a single standalone episode, Still, it's interesting to see it slowly unfold as well. So basically, we have this Freddy Krueger type situation with the kids getting targeted by this ghost because of what their parents did. They killed him. It was an accident, so it seems so far. We haven't got the whole story yet, and it looks like the parents were trying to retrieve the Slappy doll off this kid. For some reason, it seems that they were really scared of the dolls, so maybe Slappy had been messing around with them. It seems like this kid could have been bullied a bit, so maybe he used Slappy to go after the people that bullied him, because they didn't really seem like they were his friends. Like one of the kids' mums who was friends with him, he went up to her saying, "I'm really scared of something," and she basically brushed him off, and that doesn't seem like a very friendly thing to do. So I'm getting the feeling it's going to be that they were pretending to be his friend and they end up doing some sort of horrible prank on him, and he gets revenge by using the Slappy doll. And then they go to get the doll and lock him in the basement, and he falls down the stairs of the basement and tips over the candle and sets the house on fire and burns alive. So they didn't kill him, it was an accident, but still it doesn't really seem like they did a whole lot to help him either, and they seemed very dismissive of the fact that he was burning alive. They're like, "Oh, let's just get out of here." Like, you just caused somebody to burn alive and that's your reaction? Anyway, so that's the storyline. I want to see how it ends, but still, I really think they could have just contained it to one episode. So Justin Long, the Scream King himself, is definitely the standout of this, no surprise. You know, he's been in Barbarian, Jeepers Creepers, and now this. Anyway, so the kids, they're just really, really bland, really generic, just, I don't know, just stereotypes. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with a cliche, a stereotype, if it's interesting, if you bring something new to the table. And with this, it just felt very generic. And one of the kids, who was the Go Eat Worms kid, I forget his name and I don't really care to look it up, but that kid was, I don't know, I just found him unbearable. Like, he ruins this girl's drone, which costs $3,000, and then he barely even apologizes. Like, I don't know, I just found him hard to watch, and when the worms were attacking him, I was actually happy, and I'm pretty sure I was meant to be sympathetic. But anyway, the worms actually did look pretty cool, the worm monster, so I will give them a point when it goes to the special effects. That is a point in their favor. The special effects did look pretty good. So in this, we had sexual references, violence, cheating, adultery, and it didn't feel like it was a show for little kids. If I had kids, I wouldn't let them watch this. This is a show I feel like they really should have targeted at older teenagers. They should have committed to making it darker and selling it to an older crowd. And when it comes to the cheating and the love triangles and all of that, it just really was the parts that dragged the most for me. It felt like it was going more into the territory of soap opera, not Goosebumps. So I felt like their attempts of humour often fell flat. There were a few things that made me laugh, but often the humour fell flat. The music felt really bad and out of place. Like, it just didn't fit the tone of the show. And that introduction song, oh my gosh. Seriously, this is how you do an introduction. Anyway, so the setting, I liked the setting. It had this really gloomy, rainy, Forks type feel to it. So I felt like that really fitted with the universe. So I feel like there's been a trend in Hollywood lately of having an IP that's really popular with a certain group of people and trying to target new audiences while also targeting the older generation that grew up with it. And they're trying to make it so soulless and generic and destroying everything that made it so good to begin with. It's like they're standing on the shoulders of the Goosebumps IP while simultaneously trying to destroy it almost. Like, this just feels so soulless and like such a cash grab, and it feels like the people who made it weren't really even fans of the show to begin with. So this is a show that millennials grew up watching, and it's also gonna obviously try to target a Gen Z audience, which I completely understand. But there were some jokes targeted at millennials, and I'm like, okay, I feel personally attacked. Like, this is a show that the generation that grew up watching it are going to be the most invested, the biggest hardcore fans. So why are you making jokes at their expense? And there was some progressive social commentary that won't age well. Look, in terms of 2023, it was pretty tame. Like, it didn't take away from the show at all, but still it did feel like it was shoehorned in to check some diversity, progressive boxes off, you know what I mean. And it just felt like it was so cringy. Like, we have this gay kid who's very rich, and he has a best friend who just broke his arm and lost his chance of going to university possibly because he doesn't have his football scholarship anymore, and his family doesn't really have the money to send him to university. And we have the rich best friend who's complaining about how easy his friend has it because he's straight and he's not gay. And it's like, really? Don't you see how tone deaf you are? Anyway, look, apart from that, I would say 7 out of 10 score wise. It's good enough that it's kept me invested. I'm gonna keep watching. So if you want to see the rest of my reviews, I'm going to be reviewing each episode as it comes out. It had an interesting enough storyline. You know, I want to see the mystery unfold. So it's okay. It's not horrible, just really generic. Anyway, if you could like, subscribe, all of that, comment, it really helps my channel to grow. Thanks, guys.